Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I was living paycheck to paycheck doing freelance social media work and part-time retail when I finally landed what seemed like a real opportunity. The husband looked like your typical friendly neighbor guy. Babyface, always smiling, spoke quietly like he was sharing secrets with you. He had this artistic vibe and filled his office with motivational posters of Steve Jobs and other tech billionaires. The wife had that Earth Mother look going on with flowing clothes and always talked about being fierce when it came to protecting her family. She seemed warm at first, but I quickly learned she lived for office drama and talking behind people's backs. Their business was supposed to be some kind of public relations and business services company. At least that's what they told me when I got hired. The red flags started showing up immediately though. Every few months, they would completely pivot what the company was supposed to do. First, we were a PR agency, then suddenly we were an IT provider, then a business incubator, then something about craft beer partnerships. It was like they were just throwing ideas at the wall, hoping something would stick. There were 8 of us total working there. The woman at the desk next to me was 67 and terrified no one else would hire her. At her age, a couple other people were in similar boats where they couldn't just walk away. The bosses knew this and totally took advantage of it. Here's where it gets really messed up. They would only pay us partial salaries most weeks. Maybe 60, 70% of what we were supposed to get. Then they'd act like they were doing us this huge favor by paying the full amount for 1 month before going right back to shorting us again. Meanwhile, the wife was constantly posting on social media about her shopping trips and spa weekends. She'd write captions about treating herself after such a hard week or how she deserved these luxuries. The husband kept buying new gadgets for his office and they both drove expensive cars. The wife would hold these team meetings where she reminded everyone that we were all supposedly in this together during tough times. Then literally the next day she'd post photos on Facebook from some expensive spa resort talking about rewarding herself with massages and treatments. The husband was obsessed with making it big. He claimed he used to be a brand manager for Coca-Cola, but I looked that up and couldn't find any evidence of it anywhere. The wife had this little display case full of local design magazines that they apparently helped with, but really they just printed 2 issues. They acted like this made them major players in the industry. They were also incredibly picky about clients in the wrong way. This young couple came in one day with their baby in a stroller wanting help starting a coffee import business. The guy explained his grandfather had a farm and he wanted to learn how to set up the export side. They seemed really motivated and had clear goals. I greeted them at the front desk and helped them get settled in our conference room. When the husband finally came out to meet with them, he listened for maybe 5 minutes before basically dismissing them and sending them on their way. That couple ended up starting their business with someone else, and now they have this successful coffee company with a big social media presence. Could have been his client if he wasn't so focused on only wanting big business deals. The husband had named all the rooms these ridiculous names like the machine room for where we sat and the chamber for his office. Whenever someone questioned his ideas in meetings, his wife would pull that person aside afterward and lecture them about how her husband was brilliant and a genius. She'd explain that he deserved to taste success and that employees couldn't challenge him like that. I experienced this firsthand after suggesting we focus on smaller local clients we could actually help instead of chasing these fantasy corporate contracts that never materialized. She told me that the person who gets angry is the person who loses and that I needed to manage my emotional direction better. This went on for over a year. I was owed about 2.5 months of back pay, but couldn't quit because I had nothing else lined up. The older woman next to me was in the same boat. It felt like being trapped. That's when my best friend's ex-boyfriend offered to help. He's a programmer and web developer. We figured even if our plan didn't work, at least we'd get some laughs out of it. We created this incredibly professional-looking fake investment company website. LinkedIn profiles, the whole 9 yards. The idea was to pose as a potential investor who might be interested in funding their constantly changing business ventures. My friend's ex started small. First, he liked their company Facebook page, then left a few comments. The husband took the bait immediately and started engaging with enthusiasm. They moved to email, where the husband was practically tripping over himself to share all his ambitious projects and big plans. The fake investor reached out expressing interest in their business model and mentioned that his investment firm might be interested in providing funding. The husband responded like this was exactly the opportunity he'd been waiting for and started pitching all his grand visions for the company. The fake investor played it perfectly. He sent over a list of standard due diligence requirements that any real investor would ask for. Proof of concept documentation, employee payroll records showing everyone was current on their wages, tax identification numbers, basic business verification stuff. Nothing confidential or sketchy, just normal paperwork that proves a company is legitimate and up to date on their obligations. The fake investor explained that before moving forward, they needed to verify that the company was in good standing with all employee obligations and tax requirements. The husband assured him that they ran a tight ship and promised to get all the necessary documentation together. Within 3 weeks of this fake investor showing interest, I received payment for every single penny I was owed. The full 2.5 months of back wages showed up in my account. The other employees got caught up on their pay too. I loved watching the husband's mood over those few weeks. He was walking around the office like he was already planning how to spend his big investment windfall. He kept telling everyone that big things were coming and that this opportunity could change everything for the company. His wife chimed in that they always knew their persistence would pay off eventually. Right after everyone got paid what they were owed, the fake investor went completely silent. No more emails, no more contact, nothing. The husband went from being on cloud 9 to looking confused and deflated. He kept checking his email constantly and asking around the office if anyone had heard from the investor. I put in my notice as soon as my bank account showed the full payment. The older woman who sat next to me waited a bit longer to make sure her payment cleared. Then she left too. She told me later that our boss seemed really off and depressed after his big opportunity just vanished into thin air. We never actually scammed them out of any money. We just tricked their greedy, opportunistic nature into making them do the right thing and pay their employees what they legally owed us anyway. No confidential information was shared, no money changed hands between them and the fake company, nothing illegal happened. We just created the situation where paying us properly was the only way for them to get what they thought they wanted. I never told anyone at the office what really happened. As far as they know, they just had bad luck with a potential investor who changed their mind. Meanwhile, 8 people got the wages they had earned and deserved. I think the funniest part was how eager the husband was to prove his company was legitimate and professional when he'd been running it like a personal piggy bank for over a year. All it took was the possibility of real money coming in for him to suddenly remember how to be an actual employer. The wife still posts her spa days and shopping trips on social media, but now I can look at those photos knowing that for at least one brief moment, their employees got paid properly because their greed finally worked against them instead of in their favor. My career as an aircraft maintenance engineer at a major regional airline started about 8 years ago. Our heavy maintenance base sits in the heart of the region, and we're all like one big dysfunctional family here. Most of us have been working together for years, we know each other's kids' names, and we've got each other's backs when things get tough. But like any family, there are always those few people who just can't help but get under everyone's skin. The job itself is pretty straightforward. We strip down these massive aircraft, inspect every bolt and wire, replace what needs replacing, and put it all back together so people can fly safely. It's good work, honest work, and I take pride in keeping these birds in the air. The pay is decent, and the overtime during busy seasons helps me keep up with the mortgage on my little place outside town. Our break room is nothing fancy, just some tables, chairs, a microwave that's seen better days, and a sink with a board above it that's got hooks for hanging mugs. Everyone's got their spot, their routine. I brought in this plain blue mug from home about 2 years back. Nothing special about it, just your standard ceramic mug, but it was mine. I'd hang it on the same hook every single day, third from the left, and that was that. Things were going smoothly until management decided to upgrade our break room supplies. They bought a whole set of new mugs and glassware for both the break room and the meeting rooms. Wouldn't you know it? The mugs they purchased were identical to mine. Same blue color, same size, everything. Management sent around a memo asking us not to leave any cups or mugs in the sink or on the benches anymore since they wanted to keep the new stuff organized. I figured I better mark my mug somehow so the cleaning crew wouldn't accidentally toss it in with the company mugs. Simple solution, right? I took a black marker and wrote my name on the bottom. Problem solved, or so I thought. A few days later, I walked into the break room for morning tea break and reached for my hook. Empty. My mug was gone. I looked around and eventually found it out in the hanger sitting on one of the workbenches. Someone had been using it and just left it there. I brought it back, washed it out, and hung it up where it belonged. Figured it was just a one-time mistake, but it kept happening. A few days later, there it was again, sitting in the sink with coffee stains. Then I'd find it on random tables, sometimes with leftover tea in it. This became a regular pattern. Someone was deliberately taking my specific mug and leaving it wherever they pleased. I tried writing my name in big black letters on the outside of the mug. Still disappeared. I started leaving sticky notes inside the mug asking people not to use it. I come back to find the note crumpled up in the trash and my mug sitting in the sink half full of cold coffee. The guys on my shift started finding this whole thing pretty entertaining. They'd place bets on where my mug would turn up next. Getting desperate, I got out the label maker and made this bright orange sticker covered with biohazard symbols. Figured that might get the message across while giving everyone a good laugh. I slapped that sticker right on the side of the mug and hung it up. The next morning, the mug had completely vanished. Not in the hanger, not in the sink, nowhere to be found. That was the last straw. Now anyone who works in aircraft maintenance knows about Skydroll. It's this synthetic hydraulic fluid that most large aircraft use. The material safety data sheet says it's safe to handle. But let me tell you, that stuff is nasty. Get it on your hands and you'll feel this warming sensation that turns into a mild sting. If you've got any cuts or scratches, it burns like you wouldn't believe. And if you're unlucky enough to get it somewhere with sensitive skin, well, you'll remember that mistake for a long time. If it gets in your eyes, the pain is incredible, and even flushing with water takes forever to help. But according to the official paperwork, it's non-toxic. The only listed side effect is minor discomfort with skin contact. Perfect. I went home that night and grabbed another blue mug from my kitchen cabinet. The next morning, I applied a thin layer of Skydroll around the rim with a cotton swab. Not enough to see, just enough to make an impression. Then I hung it up on my usual hook and waited. Sure enough, the next day my mug was missing again. I searched everywhere but never found it. Nobody said a word about anything unusual. It was almost anticlimactic, but you know what? Mug number 3 never went missing. Not once. Whatever happened to the mug thief, they clearly learned their lesson. Months went by without incident. Life returned to normal, and I enjoyed my morning tea in peace. Then one evening, we were having drinks with some of the other shift crews at our usual spot downtown. I was chatting with this guy from the night shift, really laid-back fellow who was known for having a collection of random mugs scattered around his toolbox. Somehow the conversation turned to weird workplace incidents. The night shift guy told me about the strangest thing that had happened to him a few months back. He figured someone must have had it out for him or something. He explained how he was working late one night and needed some coffee to keep going. He grabbed a mug from the break room like he always did and took a few sips. He noticed this weird taste, then suddenly his lips felt like they were on fire. I nearly choked on my beer when he continued his story. He described how he dropped that mug so fast and ran to the bathroom to rinse his mouth. But washing with water just made it worse and spread that burning feeling all over his face. It took nearly 20 minutes before it stopped stinging. He figured someone had played a really nasty prank on him for no reason. I asked if he ever found out who did it. He said no, but that experience taught him a lesson. He never took another mug from that break room and had been bringing his own coffee in a thermos ever since. I sat there for a moment, then started laughing. I told him that was me, that it was my mug he had taken. His eyes went wide for a second, then he started cracking up too. He asked if I was the one with the mug that kept disappearing. I explained how every single day for weeks, someone had been taking my mug. I told him I had tried everything to get whoever was taking it to stop. Names, notes, warning stickers, nothing worked. He admitted that I had taught them a lesson they wouldn't forget. I told him it seemed like the only option left, and it had worked, hadn't it? He agreed and said I had played it fair. He admitted he should have asked before taking someone's mug in the first place. We spent the rest of the evening laughing about it, and he took the whole thing like a champion. Word got around the maintenance base pretty quickly after that. Funny how suddenly everyone became very careful about which mugs they used. The mystery of the disappearing mug became legendary around the hangar, and I never had another problem with my personal coffee cup again. This happened a few years back when I was attending college in the Pacific Northwest. I doubt anyone's coming after me at this point, so here's the story. I had moved to this small mountain town for school and wanted a companion for all the hiking and biking I planned to do. The area was perfect for outdoor activities. I decided to adopt a Husky from the local shelter. Best decision I ever made. This dog was amazing. He had mismatched eyes, one blue and one brown, that made people stop and stare. His personality was huge. He would talk back to you with these crazy husky sounds, like he was telling you about his day. Everyone who met him loved him instantly. My mountain bike was my only transportation, so we became inseparable. He was in incredible shape from running alongside me on 30-mile rides through the mountains. You could see every muscle under his fur. Watching him run was like watching what huskies were born to do. He was perfectly trained. I could tell him to stay outside the classroom building during lectures, and when I came out hours later, he'd either be napping or getting belly rubs from students. The dean of the college knew him by name and started bringing his own dog to work after seeing how well behaved mine was. The local coffee shop had a designated spot for him on their deck. You had to walk past him to go inside, and good luck resisting those eyes asking for scratches. Everyone in town knew him personally. The police knew him, animal control knew him, even the shops would let him come inside. Mountain biking in that terrain meant sometimes we'd get separated on the trails. He'd catch a scent or get distracted, and we'd end up on different paths down the mountain. This was such a small town that it never worried me. Within hours, someone would bring him home or call me because everyone knew whose dog he was. Then everything changed. We were out on our usual trail run when he disappeared on the way down. I waited at our meeting spot for hours, called his name until my voice was hoarse. Nothing. I figured he'd show up by evening like always, but night came with no sign of him. Days passed, then a week. This had never happened before and I was getting worried. I started asking everyone in town if they'd seen him. In a place that small, secrets don't stay hidden long. One of my friends came up to me with information. He told me he'd seen my dog with some guy who worked at the college. He said he'd followed the guy home and gotten his address. My friend had told the stranger that the dog belonged to someone and gave him my phone number. I waited for that call. It never came. After some digging, I found out where this guy worked on campus. I decided to go talk to him directly. When I tracked him down, I was not prepared for what he said. I approached him and explained that I thought he had my dog. I mentioned that my friend had given him my number to call me. The guy told me he was keeping the husky because I obviously didn't take care of him properly. I asked him what he was talking about. He said my dog was clearly malnourished because of how skinny he was. He claimed the dog was much better off with him now because he actually cared about animals. This complete stranger had stolen my dog and was lecturing me about pet care. The fact that my dog was lean and muscular from being in peak athletic condition apparently looked like neglect to this guy. I told him it was my dog and that he was in perfect shape because we exercised together every day. I demanded he return my dog immediately. The guy refused. He said finders keepers and started ranting about how irresponsible I was for letting my dog run around loose. I kept my cool because I had an ace up my sleeve. The dean of the college and my dog were practically best friends. They had this daily routine where they'd hang out between classes. I had the dean's personal phone number from a project I'd worked on. I called the dean that Saturday morning and explained the situation. The dean was furious and asked for the guy's information immediately. He said he couldn't believe someone had actually stolen my dog. Within hours, I got a call that my dog was waiting for me at the dean's office. When I arrived to pick him up, the thief was there too, looking miserable. When I was putting the leash on my dog, this guy handed me a massive 50-pound bag of the cheapest dog food you can imagine. He told me he bought it for me so I could actually feed my dog properly. The audacity was unbelievable. He stole my dog, accused me of neglect, and then gave me garbage food like I didn't know how to care for my own pet. I was feeding him a premium raw diet that cost more per meal than this guy probably spent on his own food. I took the bag and thanked him politely. I had plans for it. I knew exactly where his office was since he worked at my school. Monday morning, I showed up with that 50-pound bag, planning to dump it on his desk and tell him what I thought of his stunt. When I got there, his office was empty. Perfect! I opened that bag and turned it upside down right on top of his desk. 50 pounds of cheap kibble cascaded over his computer, his keyboard, his research papers, his books, everything. It formed this perfect mountain of dog food covering his entire workspace. It was honestly beautiful. I didn't tell anyone except my closest friends what I'd done. This guy's research was apparently pretty important, and covering it in dog food didn't go over well with the college administration. 2 days later, word spread that he'd been fired. Not just fired either. They put a restraining order on him and had to change the locks because he'd been making threats about getting back at whoever ruined his work. During the misconduct hearing they held for me, I played innocent. When the board members asked if I knew what happened to the bag of dog food, I told them I'd given it away to some guys who were asking about dog food. I said I figured they could use it more than me, and that was the last I saw of it. All charges were dropped immediately. My dog never even missed a beat. He was back to his normal routine of charming everyone on campus and sleeping through my lectures like nothing had happened. The dean still brings his own dog to work, and they have play dates in his office between classes. The guy who tried to steal him had to move to a different state to find work because word got around about why he was really fired. Research institutions don't look kindly on people who can't protect their own work from basic office mishaps. Don't mess with a man's dog, especially when that dog is beloved by half the town and the dean of your workplace. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.